Hi, I'm Michael Killen, and I'm working on a documentary, Painting to Change the World, and this is a taping session for that documentary. And I have invited Dr. Carol Tang. She is the Director of Public Programs at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco to be part of this taping session so that I can gain some new insights about climate change and how people think about it and what the museum is doing to help educate, inform, and motivate the public. Hello, Carol.
Hi.
So nice to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's a long drive from San Francisco down here to where we're taping in Palo Alto.
Well, it is a drive, and I did look at my carbon footprint, but what you're doing is so important that I knew it was important enough to be here.
The museum, what's the fundamental mission of the California Academy of Sciences?
Well, our mission since 1853 is to explore, explain, and protect the natural world. And increasingly, that means not just sitting on the sideline, but actually getting people engaged in issues like climate change.
And how do you feel your museum and other institutions of education are doing with respect to educating, informing, and motivating the public?
Well, I would say a few months ago, I would say that we were doing a really good job, that people were really understanding the science behind climate change, that they were understanding the urgency. But the recent polls have shown that it's not really the truth, that people are now changing their mind about climate change. There are now more people who believe that climate change is not human-induced and that is not an urgent issue to deal with. And I think that that is a wake-up call for our institution and others to say, you know, what is the most effective way to get people engaged about this topic and to actually make behavioral changes in their own lives so that we can really slow down and hopefully mitigate the dangers of climate change.
All right, so the polls say the discussion has been heading downward, and it's not good for civilization. What is the main approach that has been used and continues to be used right now to try to educate the public?
Well, I think that we've been using different approaches in the recent past, and that is one is climate literacy, is really trying to get people to understand the science behind it, what greenhouse gases do, and things like that. I think people have been taught, and really well, about putting on solar panels, changing their light bulbs, and changing the way that they use electricity in their homes. But what I think has not been working is that people aren't making bigger changes in their lives, or voting, or investing in new technologies. So really changing their attitudes. And then, of course, now we see that people are actually thinking that climate change is not an issue, that maybe we've done enough. And that clearly is not the case.
Okay, but maybe that's okay that they feel we've done enough. I mean, what are we going to lose?
Well, we're only going to lose everything around us. I mean, I think that's one of the things is, you know, I have a 4-month-old baby at home, and one of the things that's striking to me is his life, his world is going to be different than the world I grew up in and the world you grew up in.
Okay, that's important. And this show will be seen by people around the world, but
right.
We're basically in the San Francisco area.
That's right.
What does the people in the San Francisco, the Napa Valley, what do we have
right.
to worry about losing?
Well, I think one is we take our quality of life, our standard of living, you know, for granted. We love this weather. We love sipping wine and eating cherries and strawberries, and yet all of that is really at risk. I mean, with climate change and a lot of the models that scientists are relying on, they're showing not only increased sea level, which people are like, well, that's not going to affect me, but it's going to affect growing seasons, what kinds of fruit and vegetables we eat. It's going to affect the wine industry here in California.
How is it going to affect the wine industry?
Well, the interesting thing is we don't really know, and I think that that's the scary part, is with different kinds of rain patterns, with less fog, with different changes in seasonality and the timing of spring and the timing of fall, we actually don't know what's going to happen to the wine industry.
So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry and provides a lot of jobs, wealth. But I'd like to stay on wine for a moment. I'm under the impression that the temperature is going to keep getting more like Los Angeles and maybe more like Mexico, keep going north and right into Napa Valley. And if the temperature goes up, let's say 10 degrees, won't that trouble the grapes?
Yes, right. It's not just the temperature. It is definitely going to be warmer, but even the pattern of rainfall we're going to get, and the fact that people are saying we're going to lose our fog, and then also it's the difference between night and day. The temperature difference in the hot daytime and in the cool nighttime. All of those things are going to be changing. And that's one of the reasons that climate scientists are now talking more about climate change and not just global warming. Yeah. That, yes, temperatures are going to be warmer, but it's everything that goes with it. I mean, one of the things about agriculture that we're finding out is the timing of when the pollinators and when the fruit happen. Those are changing. And if they don't match up anymore, then who's going to pollinate the fields? Yeah. So the changes are fundamental. I think people don't understand and really are not appreciating that we're talking about the details and we're talking about the big picture and that everything is changing. One of the first real studies that have come out that it seems like a joke is the fact that Burmese pythons could start invading parts of America that we haven't found them before because of the warmer temperatures.
Oh yes, the pythons. But I just like, you know, I understand about the pollinations and the timing, but I just like to stay on something that I think is meaningful to some people. 20, 30 years from now, we could lose all the vineyards.
That's right, or they'll be in different places. I mean, I think one of the things that we're finding, that scientists are finding, is that, for example, the places where people have been growing a certain type of grape for generations, if they have to change the kind of grapes they grow, that's a completely new system, new education, everything they adapted to. So humans adapt just like animals and plants adapt. So generations of farmers have adapted their agriculture system, their business model to where they're at. And if they have to move, if they have to grow different grapes, if they have to grow them at different times of the year, that's going to fundamentally set back the industry. Okay,
so it's what we grow, including the wine, the grapes, and then it's the real estate. Real estate values are going to shift.
I think that, you know, the studies show that it's not like Florida. I mean, definitely those places will be really flooded. Here we are going to get flooding, and there's also going to be a lot of changes, for example, in storms. So we see already where in Pacifica, where there are apartment buildings falling down, storm surge will be more of an issue. And also in the Delta as well, as the water rises, that area might be really impacted.
And what about the climate change on the impact of our health right now and 10, 20 years? Does it bother our health?
So we, for example, think that there will be more pests, rats and mosquitoes and flies and things like that we've been pretty protected from here in San Francisco Bay Area. You know, the fact that we complain about how cold it is in August actually eliminates a lot of pests for us in our everyday lives. So there's been talk about bubonic plague, about dengue fever, malaria, a lot of different tropical diseases starting to invade parts of California and parts of the United States.
So we have a lot to lose.
That's right.
And I think your message is if we think about some of the things we are going to start to lose, and then we think about our children, you know, they're not going to have what we had, maybe a beautiful sky, nice wine, nice weather,
That's right.
And then their children are even going to have a more bleak existence.
That's right. I mean, it's a runaway train, and we've started it going already. And that's why everyone has to do the little things as well as the big things, as well as vote, as well as invest, as well as inspire the next generation of scientists. This is not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. But if you do the little things like stop driving as much, trade in your SUV for a bicycle, all those things are going to matter because they'll buy us time to find the solution that's going to actually draw down carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Good. Now, we have a lot of ethnic groups in